All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host Jake Ellenbogen, and we are coming to you after a Week 5 Rams loss to the Green Bay Packers, 19-24 at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, and yet another Rams loss that really feels like it should not have happened. We are now going into the bye. For those of you who didn't know, week 6 is the Rams bye. So going into the bye, the Rams are 1-4. We are last place in the NFC West. The season could not have been off to a weirder and more frustrating start for this Rams team. And the vibes are not all that great. But before we get into that, Jake has a quick note.
Well, yeah, of course, because if you haven't already, you got to check out Prize Picks. And I saw some people that made some money, so it made me feel good on Prize Picks, sending me their slips and what have you, lineups. So if you haven't gotten started, you can go sign up, use the code JKBogan. The link is in the description below, and you'll get $50 on your first lineup. So if you put a lineup in for $5, does not matter if you win or you lose, you're getting 50 added to your account. So go ahead, sign up today, and use code JKBogan.
It's a great deal.
It is. It made me feel good because it was a frustrating day, but I had some people saying, well, you guys helped me win money talking about Whittington and Atwell. So I went all in on Whittington and Atwell. And I was like, hey, I'll take it. Makes me feel
We'll
good.
take it. Yeah. I mean, definitely a positive there. If you are one of those people, congratulations. But yeah, wish we could congratulate ourselves about the game and the predictions. Unfortunately, we cannot, not our week in that regard. Yeah, Jake, so let's get into it. It's frustrating.
Just a
It's
little
going to
bit.
be the blanket term that we're going to use, I think, probably a lot today to talk about this game. 19-24, a game that the Packers didn't look that good in. But I want to be clear about something with the Packers. The Packers had injuries too. Packers have had a lot of injuries. So to be fair, both of these teams are banged up. So I didn't think that, the Rams had really any excuse going against this Packers team. And we saw with the way they played, the Rams could have won this game. It's not like, Jake, they went in against the Packers and were completely overpowered and just the entire game the Rams couldn't get anything done. Not at all, actually. The Rams took it to the Packers actually at times. And, I thought there were moments where the Packers really struggled against us. But this problem of executing both offensively and defensively continues to haunt the Rams, Jake. Particularly this game, to me, was an offensive failure. Which, when you're looking at this Rams team in its current state, we all keep talking about how bad the defense is, right? The defense and, particularly our linebacking core. And don't worry, guys, we'll talk about how bad they are too, because they also did not perform. But I feel, and I'll let Jake give his thoughts on this, but I feel that this game's loss was particularly an offensive failure. This was a game where the offense did not look good, and particularly, I thought Matthew Stafford didn't look his best. I thought arguably this was Matthew Stafford's worst game of the season because I didn't think that the Green Bay defense did an entirely amazing job against us. It's not like the Bears game where that Bears defense, as Jake and I have talked about, is very good. We knew that going against that Bears defense was going to be somewhat of a challenge. This Packers defense, they've got a lot of injuries. I didn't think that they were going to be great. I didn't think they played great. I thought the Rams offense underperformed. Jake, I'm talking very slowly with my words because I don't just want to start ranting, on the show. But what do you think was the main problem with the Rams offense yesterday?
Oh, I mean, when you look at the Rams offense yesterday, they had the run game going. They were able to throw all over the field. Whittington had 89 yards. I think really what it comes down to, though, is the turnover. I think that really, the 2 turnovers, that really sucked. But in addition to that, I just think a team that has struggled to score when they get to the red zone, but they continuously get to the red zone, they had 2 out of 3 drives in the red zone that they scored on. And, I'll say this. I don't think that offense was as good as it was against the Bears per se. I know you had more yards. I just felt like this was really inexcusable. There were a lot of different moments. The last drive of the game, there's no excuse to not go down the field and score. Really, just no excuse. Defense, once again, just like last week, got the big stop at the end of the game, and your offense didn't do anything with it. Logan Bruss really struggled mightily in this game. I believe he gave up 7 pressures. I don't have it in front of me as of right now. I will in a sec, but I think he gave up 7 pressures the last time I checked. So, 7. So he had a 0 pass block grade according to PFF, which, to have a 0 pass block grade, I think that's insane. Like that they even do that, but is what it is. 7 of the 16 pressures were Logan Bruss at left guard, and he's looked good at times and he's looked not so good at times. Kyron Williams had 3 pressures given up. And notice Kyron Williams is pretty much right where Logan Bruss is. So that job was not easy. It was untimely pressure on Stafford. I thought Stafford missed throws that he definitely wants back. There was one in the end zone to Colby Parkinson. He just missed him. You would never know, because you'd think if Stafford has 13 targets to Colby Parkinson, clearly they're having something going on, but it hasn't been great. And, it really makes me wonder at some point or another if we see more Davis Allen, when we're going to see Tyler Higbee, because I like Parkinson, but I have not been overly impressed with him this year. 19 of 31 is not good enough. 31 targets, and you caught 19 of them. It's just not going to get done. But I think the problem for the Rams is they can win these games. They can. But the thing that I think they're really missing is the thing that everyone's going to say they're missing. It's Cooper Kupp. It's Puka Nacua. And not having either of them is starting to really weigh on this team. What we're not talking about is that Demarcus Robinson has been kind of a bust this year. He's kind of just looked like just a guy, right? He looked like a guy that just took advantage of a role where he's the wide receiver and you have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua around you, getting you open, all that. I think what we've seen out of Whittington and Atwell shows these guys can contribute all year long, even when those guys come back. But I think we've reached the point where, maybe if they had a little bit of an easier schedule, we wouldn't see it as obvious, 1-4. But they've reached the point of they're at the point where they've essentially stretched this thing out as far as they can. And if they didn't have a bye next week, I think this season would be over. I was really upset after this game, Alexis, losing 24-19 to a team that I thought, once again, you should have beat. But at the same time, I came away thinking, you know what? We're going to find out. They got a bye. They're getting healthier. The NFC West sucks. It sucks. The 49ers are the worst team in the league right now inside the red zone at scoring touchdowns. People don't even realize that. They're getting there way often, and it's killing them. They lost to the Cardinals. The Cardinals can only beat the NFC West, and by the way, they only have 4 more games against the NFC West team, so good luck with that one. And Seattle was, shocker, a pretender. They lost to the Giants. They lost to the Lions. I don't think they're that good. So it sounds weird, but I came away from this game thinking, wow, the Rams, I guess, are going to have to win the NFC West to make the playoffs. And I wouldn't rule them out, because before I send it back to you, there are a lot of people that would say this team has no chance. They're not going to come out of this 1-4 hole. I would say 3-6 last year was pretty damning, and they won 7 of their last 8. The fact that they've already shown me they can do it and they can get it done, I feel a little confident that they can. Now, do I believe they're going to? No, I don't believe anything right now, because I'm in the mood of, show me, don't tell me. I want to see it to believe it. And right now, I just think it'd be irresponsible for me to say, yeah, they're going to turn this thing around. They're going to the playoffs, all of that. I think they are capable. I think they should do it. I think they can do it, but I don't know if they will. And I'm not going to sit here and give people false hope. The idea that, yes, 100% they're going to do this. I think you should have hope that they could do it. I don't think you should have hope that they will. And I think the Rams are a capable team right now. The one thing going for them that they have is, yeah, they're 1-4, but they are banged up. And when they get those guys back, I think things will change. But even more so, you get off to a tough start, getting that bye. We talk about the bye just to get healthy. The bye's good just in general. It gives you a week to reevaluate everything. So that's what I'll say about that. But really, really frustrating that they have 4 losses already.
Yeah, my opinion, so you look at all the losses that the Rams have had. I feel like 2 of them I thought they deserved to lose. I thought they deserved to lose against Arizona. I thought they deserved to lose against Green Bay. Because what I saw yesterday, there just was an excuse for it. I felt like the game against the Lions, listen, that was an overtime loss. Do I think the Rams should have won that? Absolutely. I do. Sometimes it doesn't go your way in overtime. At that point, it is, kind of what it is. I thought the game against Green Bay yesterday, the Rams didn't play like a competitive team. I think a lot of people took exception when I said that team I saw yesterday is not a competitive team, right? Because they lost by 5 points, but they weren't. I don't know what you guys were watching, because what I was watching, I mean, Matthew Stafford, I thought had his worst game of the season, and I didn't even know that it was all that justifiable. Because I didn't see, going against Chicago, like I said, I knew that it would be tough for a quarterback. We've seen what Chicago's defense has been doing all season. They're consistent. Matthew Stafford took a lot of sacks yesterday that I didn't think were warranted, if I'm being honest. He held on to the ball way too long. And was that because our receivers weren't getting open and, he made some bad judgment calls? Yes, that's definitely part of it. But he looked off from the time the game started. I'm very concerned about the connection with Colby Parkinson. Something that I've noticed, and listen, I like Colby Parkinson. You like Colby Parkinson? He's been on our show. Longtime listeners know that when he was getting drafted, we interviewed him on our show when he was coming out of Stanford. He's a very nice guy. This is absolutely not personal in any way, shape, or form. But he's underperformed so far, I think, through 5 games. He has not been a difference maker really whatsoever. I haven't been that impressed with his blocking ability. Something seems off timing wise with him and Stafford. And again, I don't know that it's entirely fair for me to say it's all Colby's fault because, for example, there was a couple throws that Stafford just missed him yesterday, where he was open and Stafford overthrew him. And so that's on Matthew. But a lot of people were pointing out to me in our mentions that, and I agree with this a little bit, there doesn't seem to be a lot of fight from Colby after he does get the ball. And there's a couple first downs that he doesn't get. There's a couple plays where he doesn't really do much after the catch. And I am not ignorant enough to say it's a hustle issue. I think that's, when people are on the timeline talking about NFL players displaying a lack of effort. I think that's a very touchy, delicate subject for us to say. We're not out there, nor have we ever been getting hit at an NFL level. So I would never make that assumption. But I will say, based on the eye test, yeah, there's a lot of plays Colby's involved in that you're like, could he really not have gotten, a little bit more out of that? It's like Kyren Williams. When you watch Kyren Williams, and by the way, Tony Romo, if you guys were watching the broadcast, is in love with Kyren Williams. That's a fun fact from yesterday. Even I love Kyren Williams, and Tony Romo is obsessed.
He was ultra critical of Stafford too. That was funny.
Well, a good point that he did make kind of about Kyren is how Kyren will always fight to get, maybe 1 or 2, right? Colby, I thought, was the opposite of that yesterday because I felt like every time he caught the ball, that was where the play ended. And I'm not looking at that stat right now. I'm sure that that's not, entirely true. But, you look at Colby Parkinson. He had 7 reception for 52 yards. Somewhat of a solid day, but, your mind goes to those plays where he couldn't get the first down, or where the communication was off, with him and Stafford. And I do think that's concerning because we are in this situation without Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. And you've got your 6'7" tight end that you're hoping will make things happen for you, especially in the red zone. And it just didn't. And part of that was on Matthew. I will say that he did miss him a little bit in the red zone. But Jake, there's not enough people on the offense who I think you can really trust. I thought Tutu Atwell had a good game, right? Jordan Whittington. 7 receptions, 89 yards, averaging 12.7 yards a carry. Tutu Atwell, 6 receptions, 58 yards. Solid days, but there seems to be those playmakers without Kupp and Nacua that are missing. I mean, it's Kyren Williams, right? Who's your playmaker? It is Kyren
Well,
Williams.
yeah,
But
he's got over 108 passer rating when targeted.
Yeah,
So that
that's
means
insane.
that's good.
And
That's very good.
it is very good, but I think at the end of the day, like the Rams aren't gonna win more games just having him be the star. Um, as much fun as it is to watch, and it's obviously very good. I'm not knocking that. Listen, the touchdowns this season: Kyren Williams has 6, Demarcus Robinson has 1, Cooper Kupp has 1, Jalen McCullough has 1. The pick 6 yesterday. That's a pretty big disparity. And I think, through 5 weeks, it's a little bit frustrating that there's not more happening in the red zone and that there aren't more people who I think are making things happen. So this offense, I think already is going to have to put in extra work to be super efficient with the defense that we have right now. And the defense did have moments where they played well yesterday, but they also had moments that we've seen all season that are just absolutely inexcusable. Linebacking core is pretty bad. Secondary communication, pretty bad. We'll talk about that. So at the end of I think what's frustrating, Jake, is we talk about this offense, but it's like, I feel like this offense would have to score every single possession at times to pad what's going on with the defense. So I don't know if you have anything else that you want to talk about, offensively. I'd say my biggest takeaways from the offense yesterday was just it was an uncharacteristically bad game. Communication wise between Stafford and some of the receivers. I do think Stafford took a lot of bad sacks, and I don't want to say we should have run. I mean, we should have probably run the ball more. Kyren had 22 carries, 102 yards, touchdown. But I do think that there were moments where like that PTSD kicked in where we started getting away from the run a little bit. And I was like, oh my God, like just run it. Because he kept
Yeah.
getting the yards when we needed him. So I was like, why are you not? And they put in Blake Corum. It was nice to see Blake Corum a little bit. So I thought maybe when they did that, they were going to establish that run game, but it just didn't happen. So I don't know if you have any last closing thoughts on the offense before we switch gears to the defense.
I think a fluky fumble that could happen to any running
Yeah.
back at any time,
Yeah.
unfortunately, was the deciding factor. I really do. Because at that point, it just felt like the Rams had the momentum. They go into halftime with the lead. And it just, once again, costly turnover in their territory. And it's just like what happened, against Chicago. That same deal. So it's just wicked frustrating right now, truthfully. And this team has a lot more talent than people, want to believe, because all the time it's always like, oh, this team's trash or this team's bad or whatever. No, I really don't think that, because I think when you add Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back, all of these guys are going to like work together in unison. And I think really they need to have one or the other. I do believe that you're putting a lot of pressure on a rookie 6th rounder in Jordan Whittington. You're putting a lot of pressure on Tutu Atwell. I love that we had a game plan that we got to see where Tutu Atwell and Whittington together are, catching 13 passes, getting 20 targets. I love that. I just, that to me, like getting those guys involved, it's a good sign. And, we're going to talk about the defense, so I won't get too much into that part of it. But on the offensive side, and both sides of the football, the Rams have been willing to make different decisions. They've been willing to make adjustments. This is why this team isn't dead in the water. This isn't a poorly run organization. This is an organization that's not afraid to admit, hey, okay, maybe Tyler Johnson, he had a really good camp. Let's give him some more reps in week 1. And he has that nice play. So they're like, all right, let's get him more reps in week 2. And you start to see, okay, it was just really that nice play. He's not a bad player, but he's not a starter. And so then they start giving Jordan Whittington and Tutu Atwell more reps. And now you're starting to see. And so Xavier Smith in this one had 2 catches for 6 yards. I'm not saying that that's a ton, but now we're starting to see Xavier Smith get involved. This organization is willing to admit, okay, maybe this isn't working, but we can get off that. And we're going to talk about that in the defensive room, because there's a certain player that I kept saying that they were covering him up and hiding him away from getting picked on. And I think it worked out in a big way. You might be surprised with what I say in the next thing. Maybe not, but I'll explain. But yeah, with the offense, there's not a ton else to say. I do think at some point or another, if you want to get upset that McVay's losing these games when you're watching other coaches, like last year, you're watching Kevin O'Connell. Hell, even this year, you're watching Kevin O'Connell win games with Sam Darnold. It's frustrating because you're like, come on, we have one of the best coaches in the league. He's won 4 and he's got Stafford the first 5 games of the year. How is this possible? They've won the same amount of games as Carolina. So I get why people are upset. I do. They also have had a really tough schedule, to be fair. Having to play the 49ers, the Lions, and the Packers in the first 5 games is menacing when you really think about it.
And it does get better after the bye. There is, and that is another, if you guys are wanting something to be optimistic about, the Rams' schedule. Listen, you can win any game, you can lose any game. We've clearly seen that from this team. But on paper, the schedule gets significantly easier, several games coming out of the bye, and Jake and I will talk about that a different episode. Another interesting thing, you talk about, red zone. I had somebody point this out to me before we move on to the defense. Kyren Williams in the red zone this season, 27 rushes first, 6 rushing touchdowns first. He also has gone his last 8 regular season game, he scored a touchdown. So it's been 302 days since he failed to score in a regular season game. So everybody who's in my mentions and is like, we need to run the ball more in end zone. Yeah, let's do it even more. Listen, at this point, if it wins us games, let's have him be the first running back in NFL history to score rushing touchdown every single game of the season. I don't care. Let's do something. But I thought that was fun. I told people I would share that on the podcast just because that was all over the socials today. But moving on to the defense, let's talk about that, Jake. Why don't you share what you were alluding to earlier? Let's start off there.
Yeah. So what I was alluding to earlier is how basically the Rams spent a decent amount of money at corner. They went out and got Darius Williams to start the year, and they got Tre'Davious White. Now, Tre'Davious White was coming off a torn Achilles tendon, so that wasn't necessarily going to be the best idea to bring him in as the starter. I like the idea of getting Ahkello Witherspoon back and signing Tre'Davious White, but I felt like that was too much to assume, too many variables. That he's had a torn Achilles, he's had a torn ACL, and sure enough, he has looked like he's taken a step back. So what I'm saying is it was frustrating. I called them out on it because it was frustrating to see Tre'Davious White out there. He looked like Cody Sensabaugh, who, the Jeff Fisher era Rams signed. They had the familiarity connection with him. They wanted him to start, and then they realized they pulled the plug immediately. They're like, okay, this isn't who we thought he would be. Well, this is kind of what I was seeing with Trey White. You saw some good things in week 1. You saw some not so good things in week 1. And he would flash once, like one play a game, and people would be like, oh man, that was a hell of a play. But the reality of it is he really just, for whatever reason, he just really struggled this year. The first 4 games, he gave up 4 touchdowns in 4 games, just not ideal. And I kept saying, put in Akello Witherspoon. When Darius Williams comes back, you're going to have the two best corners out there. Week 4, it was pretty evident because they didn't give up a lot through the air, but it was pretty evident that in week 4, they were scheming around the inefficiencies of Tre'Davious White. They were bracketing receivers. They weren't going to put Tre'Davious White on an island. They were always going to give him safety help. They were keeping him underneath, stuff like that. Well, when I said that, people didn't take too kindly to that. They're like, wait, are you saying that basically they have a better player? They know they have a better player on the bench and they're using the other player because they're paying him more? Yes, that's exactly what I was saying. However, week 5, that changed. Surprisingly, they actually decided to pull the plug on the Tre'Davious White experiment, and he was a healthy scratch for week 5. Akello Witherspoon started, and so did Darius Williams. We saw an emergence of, Wallace, Josh Wallace, the UDFA. He got some opportunities, Kobe Durant. And immediately, what did that do? All anyone wants to talk about is that deep ball, which, by the way, I have some insight on that. Akello was practically playing safety out there. He's never done that before. That was just not a good play call. And you had 3 guys getting their wires mixed up, essentially. But that's one of those plays where I'm like, that sucks. But it's the NFL. You're going to give up big plays, right? So I'm not too worried about that because I thought the rest of the game, they were really good. The secondary was. The linebackers, of course, and whoever was on Tucker Kraft on that big play, wasn't a fan of that. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, by having Akello and Darius and having a secondary they trust and having Jalen McAuliffe playing more than, say, Cameron Kinchins, well, guess what they were able to do for the first time all year? They were able to blitz, like actually able to blitz without worrying about, okay, now if we blitz, he's exposed, right? It's like, oh yeah, White's exposed there if we blitz. So they didn't blitz as much. They were like the 4th lowest team in terms of blitzing. So in this game, I feel like they ran the defense they've been trying to run all year because they actually felt confident in who they had back there. And I thought you saw some really good things out of those blitzes. And I thought you saw some things where, those exotic blitzes and the looks that they gave Jordan Love had an effect on the ball game. And Jordan Love struggled against it. I truly believe that. And, I thought it was interesting because Blaine had sent me some numbers. Jordan Love against the blitz versus the Rams, 4 of 11 for 7 yards and an interception. That's the 3rd worst in week 5 in terms of splits against blitzing. Jordan Love, when the Rams did not blitz him, was 11 of 15 for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is the best in the NFL in week 5 in that such split. So what am I getting at here? While that's on Chris Shula because he didn't call a single blitz in the 3rd quarter for God knows why, and magically that's when the Packers actually scored points, whereas the 4th quarter, when they did blitz, he was shut out completely. They scored the most points in the 3rd quarter, and shocker, that was right around the time where Shula stopped blitzing. Why? I couldn't tell you. But that tells me something. Shows me the potential of this defense. That's what it shows me. We know what they have. I'm not exactly thrilled about the linebackers, right? But they have a good defensive front. Their secondary just played its first game with each other. Akello hasn't started a game yet. He played 9 snaps before today. Darius Williams' first game of the year. Things are going to get better in the secondary. These guys are going to get even more confident and comfortable with each other. I think we're going to start to see Cam Curl really emerge here. I think now there's a lot more comfortability in the back end. There's a lot more, in my opinion, even though people will disagree because of the big play to Jaden Reed, there's a lot more communication. Trey White doesn't talk to anybody when he's out there. Akello Witherspoon is a communicator. That was a big reason why he was put out there. Same thing with Darius Williams. So I think there's more communication. I think in terms of having the confidence, it's allowing them to show more exotic fronts and have those blitzes. and it's going to keep quarterbacks on their toes. This is the first time all year they've really been able to blitz, and they blitzed a ton in this game. So I'm excited for that. I was excited to see the Rams, even though they lost this game, there were some good things to take away. And being willing to admit, despite the fact you're paying this guy more than the next, being willing to admit that you might have made a mistake this early in the season, I think was a big, big thing, big step forward. And we're going to see. But I'll say this right now. Defense gets a lot of hate. They have missed tackles. I'm aware of that. But defense last 2 weeks has had 18 and 19 points to work with. At some point or another, the offense has to step up. They have to score more points than that, or you can't really blame it on the defense. 24 points was plenty. If you can hold a team to 24 points like the Packers, the Rams should win that every time. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, listen, I didn't think the defense had that bad of a game, and we've seen bad games, obviously from this defense so far this season. Like I said earlier, I don't think this loss falls on the defense. I mean, there were definitely things that the defense needed to clean up. It was like a knife in my chest to see Tucker Kraft have such a big game. It just felt, we're not related, but there is this tie that Tucker and I share, and that is our last name. And it was painful to me to watch a Kraft destroy the Rams. It felt personal, even though it's not. Like I said, we're not actually related. I don't know him. But I was like, you know what? Of course, Tucker Kraft is going to have a huge game against my team. I'm going to have to watch it. And yeah, I thought they definitely didn't appear to have a really good game plan of how to contain him. But, they did a good job with guys like, I thought Wicks was going to have a big game going into this game. Reed, I know that he did okay. He had that big play that everyone's talking about. But, I didn't think the Rams did that bad of a job defensively. I think they just still suffer from kind of that tackling bug that they can't seem to shake. Again, we saw this game, a lot of missed tackles, a lot of people not wrapping up. But then you also saw, some big hits. We saw the pick six, right, from Jalen McCullough, and that was awesome. I did not. It was kind of one of those things that you had to. My brain didn't compute it when it first was happening. I was a little wondering why Byron Young, and it doesn't matter because we got the pick six, but just for everyone who was like, when I tweeted about the pick six, I had so many people in my mentions saying, why didn't Byron, tackle Jordan Love? I don't know that I have an answer for that. The only thing I can think of logically is that maybe he thought he would get, he thought he'd get a call of unnecessary roughness or something like that. I do think he probably should have just tackled Jordan Love, but it ended up working out because by not fully tackling him, he gave Jordan Love the confidence for whatever reason to think that he could make a throw. And it ended up being just a terrible play by Jordan Love. So it ended up working out. But yeah, I don't know why Byron Young kind of just half-heartedly hit him. But it worked. It totally worked. And we got the pick six. And what a feel-good moment for Jalen to get that and make that play. So yeah, definitely I thought there was some bright spots in the defense. I am still concerned about the linebacking core. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not. It's got to be better. The tackling has to be better. Communication
By the way,
in the secondary.
This week they were so much better. I know it's going to be hidden, but the defense only had 3 missed tackles this week. That's the best by far this year.
See, that surprises me having 3 because I feel like we still, and maybe it's just I'm so hyper fixated on the linebackers right now that I'm watching
that's probably
them
it.
on skates, and it doesn't. I don't know. And
the missed
what
tackles aren't necessarily what hurts the linebackers for me. What hurts the linebackers for me is they don't even know where to be. I mean, you watch, you're like, what is Christian Roseboom doing? Dropping into coverage when there's a run play, an obvious run play. Like it's not, you know what I mean? And then you watch Troy Reader and he can't disengage from a block to save his life. So when you have that, now if I have Josh Jacobs, who's as big as a linebacker, and I have him already through the first, line of defense, Well, now I'm getting to the second level and my linebackers are nowhere in the middle of the field. One's getting gobbled up by an offensive lineman, the other's dropping into coverage thinking it's a passing play.
But
That's the issue. It's like mental errors, but also they're just not physical, they're not talented enough, and they're not strong enough at the point of attack to disengage from these blocks. And that is killing the Rams. But in this game specifically, I thought they did a nice job against the run. They held Josh Jacobs in check. I know he had a touchdown. It's because it was at the goal line. I think once again, this is very similar in a sense to what they did against the 49ers. I expected more out of the run game, and I thought the Rams somewhat held them in check. I think the issue with this game that people are going to say is that one drive in which the Packers got no points on, right? They ended up punting. But that one drive of how long it took, how much time they took off the clock, because they just kept getting this first down after first down after first down, like death by 1,000 paper cuts. But Alexis, after rewatching the game, I don't think the defense was that bad. I actually thought they were pretty solid. I think it's why the Rams ultimately had a chance to win, despite the fact I thought the offense had so many mistakes. They left so much on the field. And that first drive was so infuriating when they went for it on 4th and goal. And I'm not going to sit here and say they shouldn't have done it, right? I'm not going to sit here and say they should have kicked the field goal. I don't know. But that was really frustrating to not get that. And then I can't hate on them for doing the Tutu Atwell end around, because I would have probably done the same thing, doing something different than just a back shoulder fade in the end zone. But I think the good news is you have a young defense that really, aside from the Cardinal game, as bad as they've looked at times, they're not giving up anywhere near the points that you would expect based on what you hear from the fan base. Because the fan base acts like they give up 50 a game, and that's just not true.
well, looking at this defense, kind of what you talked about earlier about them looking confused and looking, lost and things like that. And I agree with you on all the other things, as well. Just they're just not very good. I mean, regardless. But how much of that do you think is scheme? Do you think because I
For
want
who?
well, just I like if there's something that the linebackers are trying to do that maybe we're not picking up on, because Chris Shula is coming under a lot of criticism. And I think some of it is warranted. I think some of it is not. And maybe I'm trying to make an excuse for the linebackers, but I'm wondering if maybe there's something that they're being asked to do that either they don't understand or it's just bad, right? It isn't working. Or do you think all of it entirely just has to fall on the fact that no, it's the linebackers are simply not up to par and they are not capable of making some of these plays. They're not athletic enough. They're not, because I think it warrants a conversation. I think it might be a little bit of both. I think regardless, we've come to the determination that these linebackers are just not it. I think that again, I don't want to be that person. I think the loss of Ernest Jones really has affected this defense. But Jake, to my question, do you think that scheme or maybe anything Chris Shula is asking of them has to do with the confusion that's going on out there?
I don't think so. I mean, I saw, week 1, it seemed like the linebackers looked really good. It's why I made that video that now I almost regret, because people think I have been saying that Reader and Roseboom are studs. No, I said they were studs in week 1, and I was hoping it would continue. And it has not continued. Not one snap have they looked the same as they did week 1. So I just think that it's a talent issue. They're just not that talented. They are talented enough to be in the NFL, but this is the worst linebacker room in football by far, inside linebacker room. And maybe not the room itself, because we don't know. Like, I think Jake Hummel's their best coverage linebacker. He never gets opportunities. And I want to see, Spates. So I'll just say that they're the 2 worst starting linebackers in football right now. I feel very confident saying that. And it sucks, but that's how I feel. And look, I mean, watching Reader, watching Roseboom, they're capable of having a good play here and there. But yeah, just right now, the Rams need guys to be able to maintain their gap integrity and gap assignments and, not drop into coverage when it's an obvious running play and be able to disengage and get off their blocks. Because I don't think people realize when you're a linebacker, you have to take on blocks. It's going to happen. Offensive linemen will get to the second level. How do you get away from that? Can you disengage? If you can't disengage, then you're done. It's like you're not even on the field. That's what people don't understand about that position. It's not simple. So, yeah, right now, I think the Rams have a lot going for them that is just kind of hidden because of their record. But I think those linebackers, because they're in the middle, very easy to see. The casual fan can see it. Anyone can see it. I think right now, those two linebackers make the defense look worse than it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it is.
I think we've said all that we can say about it without just, again, I'm not even going to bring up the Ernest Jones thing, but a lot of people are bringing it up to me. And I agree with you. This was a failure in regards to that. But guys, I think that's going to do it for us. Disappointing week. But we are going into the bye, like I mentioned. So Jake and I will be back, in about a week and a half to talk about, our matchup after the bye. And I think, speaking for myself, Jake, I am going to just decompress from Rams football during this time. We'll see if any interesting things happen. Obviously, we'll be staying up to speed with what the Rams are doing and what they announced, but I'm going out of town, as you know, and I am going to not be thinking about football, and I think it's going to be a very nice reset to my brain to just be entirely focused on something else. So, I don't know about you, if you have any big bye week plans.
Well, I'll be making Rams content because it is my job. I got the
So
Yankees
you will not be
postseason.
you
No,
will
I will
not be
not be.
decompressing.
I will not be decompressing. Nope. And apparently, I was told that my birthday is this week. I never remember, and then it's always like a
What?
mom or like a friend is like, "Oh, hey, your birthday is this week," and I'm just
Jake's
like,
birthday is this week, October
"Yep,
11th.
she's better than me." Although I think yours, I right now it starts
Oh
with a
my God,
J. It's either June or July. It's the 19th.
it's June 19th. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so you were close.
Well, I
Well,
said
you
June
basically
1st. So
got
that
it.
automatically is the winner.
Yeah, June
You say the
19th
one
is
that
my birthday.
you're most confident in, you say that first. And I was most confident
I
in June.
Yep, I am a June baby, and your birthday is October 11th, which I do know. And so everyone be sure to message Jake a happy birthday this Friday, October 11th. I will be messaging him. I will be traveling. Am traveling that day, but I will obviously be reaching out. The big 29.
Sadly,
Yep.
we're getting closer to 30.
Last year, your 20s, live it up.
Yeah,
So yeah, Jake's gonna have a birthday bye week. I'm gonna be traveling during the bye week, and then we'll be back because we play the Raiders week
week
7,
7. Yeah.
and so we'll be back. Let me do math. A week from Friday with that episode. So October 18th, Friday, October 18th. Jake and I will be back. So, guys, until then, you can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Craft. You can follow Jake at JK And yeah, of course, we'll probably be chatting about the Rams a little bit here and there. But speaking for myself, because I'm gonna need a little bit of time to just reset my brain on football. But I'll be back October 18th along with Jake. And until then, as always, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.
Go Rams.